ladies and gentlemen. I'll call the meeting to order, please, if I may. I know we've got a couple of members on their way here, so they will join us at the beginning of the next application. You have to be present throughout the application presentation in order to vote on an application. So when members join us, we may pause so that I can make that clear to them. Welcome. I have a number of administrative points to make, which I will do now. I know that we have some substitute members tonight, and as ever when I chair a meeting, I like to specifically thank those who are giving up an evening which they might not have anticipated giving up for another council meeting. So I'll go through that list, and please correct me if I am mistaken on this. From the Labour and Co-op group, Councillor Maple is here for Councillor Curry, I believe. Councillor Van Dyke for Councillor MacDonald. Thank you both. On the Conservative group side, we have the Deputy Mayor substituting for Councillor Tranter and Councillor Golvin substituting for Councillor Diane Chambers, and therefore we have apologies from four members for this evening. May I extend a welcome to Councillors Matt Firm, Robbie Lammas, who will join us, and Kirstine Carr. A warm welcome to the planning meeting. Our thanks to former members, Councillors Etheridge, O'Para and Barrett, but Councillor Barrett, the Deputy Mayor, reappears tonight as a substitute, so thank you. We also have a request from a ward member in relation to item 8. Councillor Pat Cooper would like to address the committee. I trust members support that. Okay, thank you very much. So Councillor Cooper will join us for item 8 as ward member. Okay. So that deals with apologies. Record of meeting, we have 2 sets of minutes technically which require signature by the chair of this meeting. Those are the 4th of May and the joint meeting of committees on the 18th, which followed annual statutory council. Are you happy that I may sign or co-sign those minutes on behalf of the committee? Okay, thank you very much. So in terms of membership, Councillor Adeoye has joined us. It's only Councillor Lammas who is on the way. He's a new member, so I will have to explain to him when he joins us that he has to sit out until the first application has been concluded. Item 3, I have no urgent matters by reason of special circumstances. I see no member indicating otherwise. Item 4, colleagues, declarations of the usual issues. Councillor Golvin.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare interest in item 5. Whilst this is not a Medway development company development that you'll be determining this evening, MDC did act on behalf of Medway Council and MHS to facilitate this planning application which is coming before you this evening. As I'm a director of MDC, I will be leaving the room for the item. However, before you do that, Chair, I'd just like to point out as a matter of information, whilst land ownership is not a planning issue, as everybody in this room is well aware, the officer's report does indicate for Queen Street that the land is in the ownership of MHS. That is not correct. Number 3 Queen Street is in the ownership of the council. Number 9 Queen Street, the council are in the process of acquiring the property. The large plot of land on the corner of Queen Street and the brook is also in the ownership of the council. I just thought, the report gives the impression that it's all in MHS's ownership, I thought, just to make it clear, I would make that clear. And now, Chair, I will go and disappear. I should do some emails. See you a little later.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hubbard.
Yeah, The presentation, I don't seem to, you said it was an email been sent? When was that sent? Because I don't seem to have it.
I sent an email about just after 4 o'clock today with the presentation link. Did anybody else receive it?
No.
No, okay. My apologies, members.
Don't worry.
Councillor Maple.
Thank you, Chair. I think I probably should declare an other significant interest as one of the signatories from the Labour and Cooperative Group that called in a cabinet decision on the adjacent site, which is mentioned within the report. I don't think that stops me speaking and voting accordingly tonight. This is a separate application, but there are links, and I'll expand on that as much as I practically can when we get to that debate. But I think for an OSI, I think that's important to say that's on the record. Thank you.
Okay. Any other Labour and Cooperative?
Can I just to come back on that?
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, if it helps, I don't think the fact that you signed the call in for that item constitutes an OSI, but we can certainly note the fact that it happened in the minutes.
Okay, we haven't started the presentation, so I'm going to give Councillor Lammas a couple of minutes to join the meeting before we start the presentation. That's fine. He's en route. Okay. Well, for some members it may be, if you think it would assist, but yeah, I mean, all members clearly should have available to them the same information that you're going to present, so not everyone will be accessing electronically during this meeting. So does it disadvantage anyone if you send it individually?
Chairman, no, it doesn't disadvantage anyone because it's the same presentation as I'm showing on the screen.
Then fine.
While we're waiting for Councillor Lomas, I'll see if I can...
Okay, fine, colleagues. Thank you. Any other declarations? Okay, we'll just wait for Councillor Lammas to join us. Okay, colleagues, we will resume. A welcome to Councillor Lammas. We were just giving you time to join us because, as you probably know, you have to be present throughout every aspect of an application being considered here in order to vote, so that's fine. Colleagues, Dave can't do what he wanted to do, so we'll do the presentation in the usual manner. Okay. Mr. Harris, please.
Chairman, and I do apologise to members. I did send the presentation at about 4:15. It might have been too large, so I might have an email telling me I couldn't send it. So I will remember in future to send it earlier in the afternoon, so if that happens, I can find a different way of sending it. So my apologies, members. First application on the committee tonight is for land north of Queen Street. And draw members' attention to supplementary agenda advice, where you see one letter of objection has been received, raising the issues set out on the supplementary agenda. So, members, you will recall that planning permission has been granted for this site in here, for 179 apartments in 4 blocks. The resolution was in 21, but the permission was finally issued on the 21st of February of this year, and that was because we needed to complete a Section 106 agreement. That Section 106 agreement covered the normal developer contributions, but in addition addressed the issue of affordable housing. And what it said is that the affordable housing for 45 units to serve the 179 for here should be provided on this site here, or if that was not achievable, to be provided within this site, within the main site. So this is the application site we're talking about. It's for 45 units. You'll see that there's a terrace of properties on there at the moment, and then there's some open land down the bottom here. There's a substation just here, and there's another terrace of properties just there. Again, you can see its relationship with the wider Queen Street site, which was the subject of that previous approval. This plan just shows the relationship of the site to the Great Lines, and that's very important because when we were considering this application, but also on the wider site, the issue of its impact on the heritage importance of the War Memorial on the Great Lines was quite critical. When the application for this site first came in, it proposed a very high scheme, which we felt was harmful, and the English Heritage felt was harmful to the setting of the War Memorial on the Great Lines. So it was significantly reduced in height and in scale to what you finally approved. And the development on this site has been designed to fit in with that wider site. This shows the view down from Castle Road down to Halfords. That's the Queen Street site, which has already been improved. This is the application site on that site. And this plan shows the relationship between our application site for tonight and the approval. So you'll see that you've approved 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, reducing in height from 8 stories down to 7 stories in this direction, and obviously making the most of the fall in the land from the top road down to the brook. This scheme follows a similar building line. It's set back slightly because the car parking is to the front of the site, and therefore it's also set back slightly just in there. And again, that's a clearer version of the 4 blocks that you've approved. So you've got the ground floor runs right the way at the length, and then you have these 4 blocks above it with these landscaped podium areas providing the amenity in between. So what is proposed here? On the ground floor, we have the entrance from Queen Street, and that serves 20 car parking spaces. Of those, 50% of them will be include EV charging. We are happy with the 20 car parking spaces in this location to serve 45 units. It's a very sustainable location, right in the centre of Chatham, close to the bus station, close to the public transport and the railway station as well. We will also be recommending a parking management condition, which is on the agenda, which stops people who will be living in here applying for parking permits. So you'll also see that in terms of the ground floor here, we've got cycle parking in there for the prospective residents. So this is the entrance just here. So cycle parking secure from here is provided for residents. There is visitor cycle parking just to the side. Then we have the entrance lobby going through to the lift and the stair core. And then in this area here, we have the plant room and the bin storage. And the exit for the bin storage is just there. You'll see there's some landscaping proposed along the front and to the side. Then going up, on the first floor, we have 5 2-bedroom units and 2 1-bedroom units. So these are the 1-bedroom units here. Then we have these 2-bedroom units just there, and you can see we've got some landscaping to the side here. Then going up to the next floor, we have 5 two-bedroomed and 5 one-bedroom. The other thing you need to appreciate is that each of the units I'm pointing out here have balconies to serve them. So they've got that external amenity area as well as overlooking these landscaped areas. Going up to the 3rd floor, we have 6 two-bedroom units and 4 one-bedroom units. Again, all have balconies. Up to the 4th floor, where we have 6 two-bedroom and 4 one-bedroom. And then up to the 5th floor, where we have 4 two-bedroom and 4 one-bedroom. And then going up to the roof, which, similar to the adjacent development, could be a green roof. In terms of the ground floor, again, as I said, that shows where the entrance will come in from Queen Street, shows the potential manoeuvring of the vehicles. This plan shows the relationship across Queen Street to the approved development. So you can see we're looking at 6 stories in here, while in here you've got 7 stories, with the top story just set back in slightly behind the main wall. In terms of detailing and materials and elevations and design, it links in and provides effectively the 5th block in design terms to the 4 already approved. That shows the 4 approved. So as I said, stepping down from 8 stories down to 7 stories, and you can see in terms of the treatment of the roof area how that helps that step down towards Queen Street, and then 1 further floor less on the application site here. This is a view from Cross Street, showing the 4 stories at Cross Street and Queen Street, and then the 4 stories of the other development in here. So even though it's the same height, it does have that step down there. And then you've got the distance and the separation from the 2-story properties on King Street. That's the northwest elevation facing towards the gardens and that open space area, the pumping station. And you have the brook down here, and it shows the landscaping to the front, how that will fit in with what's already been approved on Queen Street, and the car parking area just in here. You can see the balconies and how they're set in. And then the other elevation facing onto Queen Street. Again, the detailing, the balconies, materials, the design, all proposed to fit in with the existing permission. Cross-section wise, it's very important that although the 2-story here is at a slightly higher level, this being a higher building, we need to make sure that their amenities are not unacceptably impacted. It will change, but make sure that they're not unacceptably impacted. You will see from a later slide the distances that we're looking at here, but this slide shows a 25-degree angle in terms of outlook, in terms of light and daylight going to their primary windows, so making sure that they are protected, because that's very, very important. And then these are the distances they're talking about here. You've got the 13 metres to the boundary, minimum there of 12.7, increasing up to 20.6 here, where we get to the side wall of the building. So all of these are in compliance with our normal guidance, or exceed, I should say, the guidance that we normally look for in terms of main window to side windows. That's a section through the site, apartments, and again showing how this fits in here. The 2 door sections and proposed materials, again showing how it fits in with the scheme that's already approved and the materials there. That's just a reminder as to what was approved, and you can see the materials and how this scheme fits in with that. Again, that front area, whilst in the scheme now proposed on the other side, we've got some car parking in the front. That's separated from the brook by a landscaping area, which links in to what's proposed along the front there. Chairman, we think it's a good scheme. It provides for the affordable housing required as a result of the Queen Street development. It's been well designed. It respects neighbouring amenities. It provides car parking which we consider to be acceptable in this location. We're recommending for approval, subject to the conditions as set out and the section 106. The one point I'd point out in terms of the section 106 is the first bullet point. It says provision of 100% affordable housing for the adjacent Creval site. Obviously, as members know, permission goes with the land, and that should say 100% affordable housing for the adjacent site permitted under MC 20 2782. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maple, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Harris, for the detailed presentation. It's a pleasure to be here for my almost annual substitution onto planning. I look forward to being back next year. Let me say a couple of bits first to expand on my other interest, which probably isn't significant. It would be, it's in the public domain that the adjacent site has been subject to both a cabinet report and also a call-in by the Labour and Cooperative Group. That is a pretty unusual set of circumstances. We don't call many items in, particularly items which are, shall we say, inward-looking. This is a process which we, the council, have started. We want to move forward on. We had, I would say, a good, positive, but again, confidential business support meeting chaired by the chair we have tonight, who I think always does a very good job of chairing meetings and making sure business moves along appropriately. That meeting came up with a number of recommendations which will in due course go to Cabinet. I have a fundamental concern about the application we see tonight, which is it is clearly linked to that other application which has had that conversation elsewhere on a confidential basis. I have a concern that that site may not come forward with the permission it currently has, in part because of the conversations that have happened elsewhere. So it is right to say this is clearly linked to that site, but I have a fundamental concern, and I need to put that on the record here and now. And I think I have probably a couple of questions which I think I know the answer to, but I think would be helpful to clarify. So if, let's say hypothetically, the extant permission that's been granted is not taken forward in its current format, where would that leave this application, both in the sense of if it had the same amount of dwellings, but importantly, if it had more dwellings, bearing in mind this is directly linked as 100% affordable housing. My second question, direct question, is how do we ensure, can we put something into the recommendations if this is approved tonight? And I will probably be supporting it. I think it's a good thing to see because it's 100% affordable housing in the centre of Chatham. Is there a way to ensure that any decision to vary any condition, particularly condition which says it is 100% affordable housing, has to come back to committee? Are we in a position where, and that may happen automatically. Again, I'm here as a substitute. That's quite an unusual question, but I'm just seeking some clarity perhaps around whether that needs to have an addendum note to the recommendation, because it's not part of it's not a condition for this application to go ahead, but it is a condition from a constitutional perspective as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't want to see somebody going, well, actually, that site's changed, this has permission, and therefore, actually, we're just going to develop this. But because we're not developing it, we still want to build 45 homes, this site doesn't exist anymore, therefore we'll just build it as 45 commercially sold properties. I wouldn't accept that. I may still support that, but I wouldn't support it as a de facto strongly positioned as I am on this that we see in front of us today, probably. So I have a couple of concerns around there, and if explicit answers can be given on those two questions, that would be helpful. Alongside this, it's right to, of course, look at the impact on King Street, which your very helpful diagram and slide on the presentation showed, I'd like to get a sense of feeling from officers here, probably Mr. Harris, as to the impact on Cross Street, because actually the height of the houses, we don't know what's going to happen in Cross Street. Some of those things probably will still be developed through time. So I would be slightly nervous if we are hamstringing any potential application for what is fundamentally a residential edge of town area. There's been housing there for as long as I can remember in one form or another. And of course the little bit of the other side of Queen Street, which is obviously separate from the application. As the actual physical application goes itself, I think it's reasonable. I think I have a fundamental disagreement with the policy around housing in town centres. I've rehearsed that, I think, every time I've been here. But I understand the rationale. I guess that the parking scheme, which needs to come forward as a condition, I'd like to have an understanding that that will also include how those spaces will be managed. 45 into 20 is a challenge. Whoever the ward councillor is for this after the next election, they won't want their inbox filled with lots of residents going, well, I thought I had a parking space. So something explicitly around that within that parking plan I think would be helpful. I'm sure that would be the case anyway. But I think that for me would be critically important because parking is of a premium there. I'll probably pause at that point. I'm sure other colleagues have got things they want to say as well. I say at this point I am minded to support the application, but I'd be interested on those explicit two questions on those, please.
Thank you. You've raised some interesting points. Mr. Harris would like to deal with them at this stage.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you very much. Yeah, excellent points as always from Councillor Maple. I think the first point I would say is that planning permissions run with the land. And not with whoever's applied for the planning permission. So I appreciate all the points regarding the call-in. I would just like to say that the call-in didn't relate to the planning permission. So the permission still exists, the permission has been granted, and that's still acceptable. It's whether that, as you say, is whether that then gets built out. Now, one of the reasons why it took so long from the committee resolution to the permission being issued, about a year, that's because there were very tough negotiations on the Section 106, which myself and the legal team were involved in. What we wanted to make sure is that we didn't end up with some of the problems that you've said, Councillor Maple. We didn't want to end up with this private development and someone to say, oh, I'm sorry, this can't happen now. So the Section 106 in here very much ties the two sites being constructed together as one development. Your question about that bullet point which says provision of 100% affordable housing for the adjacent site, if this development was, if we take your scenario, to come forward for private housing rather than affordable housing, that could not be in accordance with the Section 106 which you'd be agreeing here, so it would need to come back to this committee. On the parking management side, that is critical. As you say, you've got 20 spaces for 45 units. It's very important that we work with the developers or the council or an MHS or whoever's the registered provider on here to manage that car parking. We would be looking through that to ensure that there were restrictions so that they couldn't get parking permits on the surrounding road to protect the amenities of the people living around there. But it also could include discussions on whether they have access, and it seems reasonable to me, to the car club, which is likely to come forward as part of the Chatham waterfront development, or will come forward as part of the Chatham waterfront development. So that will be part of those discussions. And then the final point I recall that you're talking about is about Cross Street and how this sits with the development along the front, at the top there. MHS have already done a lot of development, as you know, on there, which has made a big difference to the area. When we were looking at this development, that was critical in terms of the distance across the road and fitting in with that. And we see this similarly fitting in with that development and not precluding further appropriate development coming forward in the future. So hopefully those answer your questions, Councillor Maple. If I missed something, just let me know.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, no other member has indicated. I'll come to the acting Vice Chair, Councillor Thorne, to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the motion is to approve planning application MC 212272, subject to conditions A, which is the Section 1 agreement, and also the provision of 100% affordable housing under MC 22782, and conditions B 1 to 25 accordingly.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Hackwell, thank you. So, colleagues, we're going to go to the vote. I should have welcomed Julie, or welcome back Julie in part, which I do now. We're asked very clearly, please, to show our hands when we vote tonight on these applications. So, could you bear that in mind when I call the votes, please? So, can we first see those in favour of approval? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you. Yes. Who's going to get him back in? Could I ask Mr. Neve kindly to invite Councillor Golvin back in? Oh, no, he's emerging. Yes, he's on his way.
14.
14. Yeah, so the number voting in favour was 14, but it was still unanimous. Yeah. Okay. Colleagues, we move on to item 6, and just for clarity, we have members of the public with us this evening. That both myself and Councillor Thorne are ward members for Strood South, which is the location, the ward of the location site, but neither of us seeks to speak as ward members on this evening. So we move to 3 London Road, and with all applications this evening, Mr. Harris presents. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you very much. Firstly, draw members' attention to supplementary agenda advice, where you'll see I'm looking to add an additional condition that the proposed access road running through the site shall be one way only, with access off London Road and egress onto Cuxton Road. And I will explain the reasons for that during the presentation. So this is the application site here. This is a detailed application for 48 residential units up to 5 stories in height, with up to 14 commercial units, 7 of which are in the railway arches under here. So some aerial photographs just to provide some context. So this is the application site at the moment. You'll see that you've got a petrol filling station just in here. There is an access and egress onto London Road. We then have the railway arches through here and some businesses and car washes and various things just in there. Then we have car sales within this area just there. The car sales are accessed from Cuxton Road just here. That road also leads through to the railway arches. That road also leads through, provides access to the industrial units just there. So from another angle, in terms of the petrol filling station on the front here, and the access and egress onto London Road, and that's the other access that I was referring to just there. So you can see how the site looks at the present moment in time. You've got the main A2 coming down here, and the impression, or poor impression, that the current condition on the site gives for Strood. It's on the traffic light junction just with Cuxton Road here, so as you're turning, you can see this is a very harsh area with car parking at present. This is Cuxton House, which has got some residential on the upper floors, but note how it's set back from Cuxton Road. So some photographs again showing the site, and in particular that corner, On the opposite side of the road, you've got some listed buildings, which include the Crispin and Crispianus. These are struggling at the moment. Members will be aware that the Crispin and Crispianus, some permissions have been granted. We're still working with the developers there. Sorry, I've lost my pen. On that, and then the ground floor of some of these units, again, they've struggled in recent years, and there are quite a significant number of vacancies there, which again we need to find a way to encourage them to be appropriately occupied. Then looking down Cuxton Road, London Road into Strood. So again, you can see the importance of this site and that entrance to Strood as you come through the railway bridge, and you've got these listed buildings on the other side again, which we want to see occupied appropriately. This is Cuxton Road, looking towards the traffic lights with the site on the left, and then you've got Cuxton House just behind here. Some current pictures of the railway arches, what they look like on this side, and you've got the some car washes, sprays in this area here, and then the other side you've got this pedestrian access and the possibility of opening up pedestrian access to the businesses that could potentially go in there. So this is the scheme. This is the ground floor and the block plan of the site. What's proposed is for this access here to be retained for access for service vehicles only to come through there. There will be a bollard in here which will be able to come down to allow those service vehicles to come through, but for it to remain up so it doesn't become a through route here between London Road and Cuxton Road. The access egress onto Cuxton Road will remain. That's serving entrance and exit to the industrial units as it currently does. This will be one way for the service vehicles coming through here and down onto Cuxton Road where they will exit the site. So very similar to what exists at the moment on there. And then you can see the 7 businesses within the arches just there. This is the main block which is proposed to be constructed on site. That will have access and egress here, and that will have a new entrance gates just in here, which will allow which potential residents will have fobs on or whatever, so that they have restricted entrance into the central area, this Undercroft car parking area, providing 19 parking spaces, one of which will be for a car club just in there. All the spaces will have EV charging points. The commercial will be along London Road, wrapping round onto Cuxton Road just there, showing 7 units, but there will be some flexibility to reduce the number of units, these walls there, depending on who wishes to take them over. So there'll be some flexibility in terms of those internal walls. And then we have this landscaped pedestrian access area in here, very much smartening up that corner onto London Road. We have some residential in here, separated from the access there by some landscaping which will wrap around just in there. So on the ground floor we have 4 cores, one core here, one core here, another core, another core. This in here is the refuse and cycle parking to serve the commercial units. All of the other 4 cores will have refuse and cycle parking to serve the residential. On the ground floor here we will have 2 2-bedroom units and 2 3-bedrooms. So the red are 3-bedroom, the orange are 2-bedroom, and they are duplexes, so they're over 2 floors. Then going up to the first floor, we have this podium deck, this landscape podium deck, which will provide an internal amenity area, landscaped amenity area, for the benefit of all residents. All of them will have the ability to come down and access onto this podium deck and enjoy that landscaped amenity area. And on this block we have 3 3-bedroomed, 5 2-bedroomed and 6 1-bedroom units there. Going then up onto the second floor, we have 6 one-bedrooms, 7 two-bedroom, and 1 three-bedroom. So over all the floors, we have a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. Going up into the third floor, you'll start to see that we're starting to get some setbacks and some interests within the roof space and the elevations, which you'll see more in the elevations shortly. But we have 2 three-bedrooms, 4 two-bedroom, and 4 one-bedroom on the third floor. Then going up into the roof, and you'll see we have the 5 stories here and here, but a reduced height in these areas here, where it fronts onto London Road and faces across to the listed buildings. So on this floor, we have 3 3-bed, 2 two-bed, and 1 one-bed. And then up onto the roof plan here. So in terms of cross sections to show the external, that's the railway arches. So that's that road which we have entrance in from London Road and then wrapping along the front down to Cuxton Road down here. And you can see how you've got the 5 stories. Then you have this interesting elevations there where you've got these projections, protrusions, and internal balconies. And then you have that reduced height there. Cross section coming through. Showing this is Cuxton Road, so you have the entrance coming in here to this Undercroft car parking area. So you've got the railway arch there, Cuxton Road coming into that Undercroft car parking. And this shows some of the balcony details that we'll get with the brick, with the render, with the tiles. So you've got the protruding balconies, you've got the recessed balconies, and then you've also got the cut-ins as well up here, which all adds interest to the elevations. So as you come into some CGIs here to show what it looks like, which gives you a good idea in terms of materials, that commercial at the ground floor and what a difference that will make. As you come through under the railway bridge, the brick materials, the tiling, but also the dormers, the inset balconies, the roof lights, and how you can see that variety. Wrapping round into Cuxton Road. Also showing how that area there, where Cuxton Road comes into London Road, how that can be vastly improved with some landscaping there. But the other thing to note here is how it comes down to 3-story, facing across to the Crispin Crispianas and the listed buildings. So respecting their setting, and that's why it comes down to there, and you've got that roof sloping away. Got the railway arches here, which will have the glazed entrances be brought forward for businesses, and then you've got no balconies on this elevation because of the proximity of the railway line there. All properties, though, have dual aspect, so no property will just look this way. They will have entrance this way or that way as well. And similarly, in all properties, as I said, have dual aspects. So they might be looking out this way, but also then into the internal podium courtyard as well. And then this is what the internal podium garden would look like, providing that important semi-private public amenity area for residents of this development. And you can see how, in terms of height, it makes it a usable, nice area without it being dominated or overshadowed. Important, as I said, that public open space onto Cuxton Road, dramatically improving that area there. And then what we have here is showing how the residential entrances and the bin store areas with a slight recess there will help to provide some interest and articulation to those elevations as well. Then in terms of the railway arches, how they will provide for the entrances to the businesses, the glazed areas there, and provide that activity. It could be businesses, it could be a microbrewery, it could be a number of commercial uses that be attracted to those areas. Chairman, we feel this is a really good scheme, it was originally the subject of a proposal for a dramatically different scheme, much higher, which went to design review. Some members attended that design review. There were some criticisms there in terms of its height, and its relationship with listed buildings. The applicants have gone away and completely rethought the scheme to the scheme that you see before you here. They've taken on board all the concerns and comments of the design review panel and my officers, including the conservation officers, and we're pleased to recommend it for approval, subject to the conditions, with the condition 30 on the supplementary, and the section 106 set out page 51. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you. A number of members may well have seen the presentation that came to elected members as well, and I know that a lot of questions were asked by elected members at that stage as well. I'll invite members to comment. I must say this scheme has somewhat grown on me, and it is good when applicants take serious note of points that are raised by officers and members during the process of putting an application together. I certainly feel that has happened with this scheme, and the plans are very detailed and interesting, and I think the units on the ground floor on London Road will help bring that end section of what is really still Strood High Street potentially to life again, and that can only be for the good, plus the landscaping. Okay, number of members, Councillor Hackwell, then Councillor Van Dyke, then Councillor Lammers and Hubbard and Galvin.
Thank you, Chair. I actually like the scheme. I think it's a good scheme. I think, as you've said, Chairman, that it should bring some revitalisation to that area. I think that I went to one of the presentations that we gave, and I think they have taken on board some of those things that members commented on. I'm a bit concerned about how much light will actually get into the central courtyard. The sun doesn't go very high in the sky for many months of the year, and with all those stories, I don't know how much, if we've done any light measurements, or they've done any light measurements during the winter or the autumn months. Apart from that, I think the schemes are very good. I like the way they've broken up the balconies and have internal ones and external ones, and I hope the railway arches do thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hackwell. Councillor Van Dyke, please.
Yes, I'd just like to ask whether there will be consultation with the ward councillors and the councillors in the adjacent ward regarding the utilisation of Section 106 monies as set out in Section A.
Very happy to agree with that, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Good point. Thank you. Councillor Lammers, I think, was next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and please do accept my apologies for my lateness today. I'm getting used to the earlier start time for this meeting. I had to come back from London, as you know, and all the road closures with the Jubilee weekend coming up made it was 2 hours to get back from London. So it was exceptional. As you will be aware, Chair and members of the committee, it's my first session, so thank you for having me. And my question is, if I vote to approve this, these green scenes with the trees, and I've seen trees in lots of the other slideshows, are they actually going to, can we insist that they actually get done exactly? Because they're quite mature trees I'm seeing in these projections. And I want to ensure that if I vote to approve this, this will come to fruition, because I like the idea of this scheme. I echo your sentiments and that of Councillor Buckwell's about the use of the railway arches, and I really do hope it does bring that end of the high street alive, but I really want to ensure that these green spaces are produced as predicted. Thank you.
Mr. Harris, will the green be as green as we see?
Chairman, I mean, this is a CGI, it is an artist's impression. What I would say is that we've got conditions which relate to getting the actual details of those areas. I have seen such podiums in a number of other sites, and they've been done very well. So I have no doubt that we will see something very good here. I don't think it will be exactly what you see on these CGIs, but it will certainly include a lot of planting, a lot of softness, because that's very important in terms of people's health and well-being, to see green trees and other planting. So there'll be a significant amount of planting Whether it's exactly like that, I doubt.
Councillor Hubbard, please.
Thank you. And whatever happens next year, and whoever's representing the two new wards in that area, this will be in a different ward from what it is at the moment. So I hope to represent Strood North again, which then this will fall into Strood North. Therefore, I take a particular interest, but then it's just not... and Finsbury. That's the bit that the Boundary Commission took from me, yeah, and Finsbury. Because the people in Finsbury so don't live in Strood, yeah. Though, this is a place I know very well. I've walked past it many times, driven past it, you know, gone to the Halfords, and it is an ugly location. It is to the detriment of the Strood Town Centre. So, building there would be improvement, full stop. When I first saw and read the planning application, I thought, oh dear, you know, it sounds like mass, it sounds a lot. Okay, it is what it is, it's in a town centre, it's going to have reduced car parking, but it's on a bus route, and we have our policies about parking related to where buses and trains are and such like in town centre. But when we had the presentation, I know that Councillor Curry went to the design review and said he thought it was okay until he started going into it and they started pulling it apart and he thought how awful it was. But when it came to the presentation we had, it is a revelation because some of the images don't give it justice, but when you start to look at it, it reminds me of a couple of locations I went to down in Bristol Docks, which are similar to it, where they're using high density, small spaces, but making it look good, and green will grow. Yeah? And then they'll be asking to cut the trees back to make sure they're no bigger than they are. So I like the idea, and I think it will offset the listed buildings opposite, because at the moment they've lost in an ugly scene, and I hope that they'll be complemented. The corner is going to be much improved, sight lines can be much improved, and the flow of traffic, as you pointed out, Chair, needs to be regulated. The current flow of traffic is dangerous. You can pull into the service station and wipe out a car coming on your left-hand side, pulling out, and then the arches aren't really in good use anyway, because in fact the petrol tank and fuel tanks are actually adjacent to the arches, so they're not really used at the moment. So we're bringing back in lots of potential retail, expanding the town centre, and putting residents back into the centre of town as well. And it can't do anything but improve the area. So it has my support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hubbard. Councillor Barrett, Deputy Mayor, please.
Well, thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Buckwell for the warm and welcoming invitation to be back here today. I very seldom have things to say, but today I am going to have something to say. Previous to sort of seeing this, obviously I was very much against it with the traffic sort of situation, and I would have spoken about that. But on top of that, the parking situation for residents in that sort of small sort of courtyard underground area, bearing in mind you could potentially have sort of 79 cars, and even if you cut that by half, it would still not present sufficient parking. And there's been a suggestion that surrounding roads could be used, or local car parks. Well, if I was in that situation, the surrounding roads would be the first choice. So I sort of feel there should be, if it does come to surround, you know, the parking situation, and there's parking permits for the surrounding roads, I'd like to suggest that the people who are residing in this premises not to be allowed to have parking permits, to ease it for the existing people living in the area. And I think that about concludes it, because I did have a lot more to say, but that's already been answered here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harris, any response?
Chairman, thank you very much. Good points made by Councillor Barrett. It's something that we exercised us in terms of this is 48 units only with 19 parking spaces. It is in a very sustainable site, very close to Strood Town Centre, on bus services, railway line, and so on. But I do take his point regarding cars and those surrounding roads and the potential impact. As a result of that, condition 25 requires them to do a car park management plan. That will deliver the car club on site. It will also ensure that they, any prospective residents here are advised of those restrictions in terms of cars on site. And if and when parking restrictions do come in that surrounding area, there will be, we will ensure that the residents of this don't get parking permits.
Councillor Maple, please.
Thank you very much, and as always, thank you very much for the presentation, very detailed. I wasn't at, I don't think, any of the member presentations previously, so I'm seeing this for the first time. I agree with Councillor Lammas, and my 15 years as a councillor, my £50 offer to any developer to come forward with a slide where it's raining for charity still exists. I suspect I will never give out that £50, but I think developers are there to show us the best possible sunshiny, green tree future that they want to see. So I understand that, but let's say to any developer watching tonight, if you come with a slide with rain on it, £50 for your charity, not a problem at all. And the serious point is actually, yeah, there's a fundamental difference between a mature tree and a whip, absolutely. So residents will need to make sure that they manage their process accordingly with whoever is managing the site for them when they move in. I note with interest on page 52, Medway now has a metropolitan park. I'm not quite sure when that rebranding happened. I still think it's the Great Lines. But anyway, I note with interest we're giving 6,500, and that's good. We should make sure that applications from across Medway continue to help fund which all of Medway uses. Although I'm not sure Medway's Metropolitan Park, that feels like a deputy chief executive might have had a look at this. Anyway, I wanted to pick up, my major point actually was around, I'm minded to support this application. I do think actually it's quite an exciting looking build. It has some of the positive aspects which certain applications I've seen in the past, although I disagreed with them around the site next door to the Tap and Tin with the kind of winter gardens and all the rest of it, so there's some interesting views here. I wanted to pick up the fact that there is clearly a level of concern from the residents opposite in Cuxton House. So I wanted to see whether we could have perhaps an informative, whether that sits most appropriately in item 7 of the section 106 around the construction plan, or somewhere else, to say actually we would want them to, we'd want the developer to meet with the residents on a appropriately regular basis to have conversations with them. We've had something similar for the St John Fisher site, which I know Councillor Adeoye and myself have found helpful and useful, and I think residents have as well. So a similar nature, the exact detail of that, of course, to be put out. Whether that can go as a formal or as an informative, I'll be guided by, of course, our excellent head of planning. And just going back to the point around parking, again, I have a similar fundamental issue with this. I would want to make sure when those 48 people move in, 48 units of people, families, individuals, whatever, they know whether they've got a parking space or not and how that's going to be managed. So a similar set of words as we would have had for the previous application would be helpful as well. And then just finally, the fact that obviously we have to have a starting point with A-class for the commercial. We've seen the flourishing of a really great facility in Chatham in an arch, very delicious. Other cafes are available. So I recognise that residents will know that if other things are coming, like somewhere like a bar or a cafe or a restaurant, that they'll have to go through a planning process. And the fact that's clear in here is, I think, helpful for any potential future resident. I'm minded to support the application.
Thank you, Councillor Maple. Mr Harris, please.
Chairman, thank you very much. In terms of meeting local residents, as Councillor Maple says, we have done that elsewhere very successfully. not only in St John Fisher, but there have been Copperfields, I think, in Chatham. I remember setting up something with ex-Councillor Bowler. They're very happy to incorporate that within the condition 7 in terms of what's submitted there. Similarly, in relation to your point on car parking and informing residents when they move in here, these are your parking spaces, you shouldn't be parking in adjacent roads. We can wrap that up in the car parking management scheme as part of condition 25.
Councillor Potter, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Like other members, I welcome the scheme. I think it's a vast improvement on the first iteration that came to the committee, and I'm very pleased that the developers have listened to members. I am concerned about the car parking situation, and I think it's good that we have we will look to restrict access to parking permits. However, I'm pretty sure a number of the roads close to this site, I'm on Northcote Road now, doesn't actually have parking restrictions. So I'm not sure how well that will work, and it may well mean, in the fullness of time, people in some of these roads will be asking for parking restrictions because they're being overwhelmed from parking from this development and whatever comes along elsewhere. So that is a concern, but providing we have in that parking management strategy the ability to restrict the permits, if we do then see permit areas come along, that will be very, very important. Sticking on the theme of highways, I'm concerned about Cuxton Road and the impact of cars queuing to access the car parking. This was raised at the presentation. So it says about a controlled access. I presume that will still mean there will be a gate which someone has to press a buzzer and it will take probably 30 seconds or so to open. Now I can imagine if I've queued along Cuxton Road and I'm sitting behind a car that's waiting for this gate to open for 30 seconds, I'm then going to miss the lights. That's then going to add to more congestion for me and everyone sitting waiting. So it could lead to some bad driving perhaps, and maybe a few signals between drivers, who knows. But that does concern me as not a particularly good situation. Personally, because it's such a low number of cars, I still can't see why they couldn't just come in off the access road and into the development. There might be good reasons for that, which you'll explain. So there still is that issue there. I welcome the use of the railway arches. I hope that the retail will rejuvenate that end of the high street and will add value rather than take away from existing traditional retail premises. So let's hope that happened. But at the end of the day, it is a vast improvement on what the first iteration was, and it's a great improvement on what we currently have with that eyesore of a site. Although it did save me once when I ran out of diesel by the Coach and Horses, and I really skillfully managed to get my car around that junction, literally run out as I was going through the lights, rolled it down the hill and straight into the petrol station. Absolutely awesome. Cheers.
Can I just tack on to the point you've made? Mr. Harris, is it possible that we can somehow condition that the vehicular gate which will open is sufficiently inset as to take an adequate length of a vehicle so that the vehicles are not queuing to go in from Cuxton Road, so that one can position whilst it's using its fob and the gates are opening? Thank you.
Chairman, I would suggest, I'm just looking through, I was hoping that there was a condition which required them to submit details of that access gate. Certainly I intended one to go on there. I will add that condition that they have to submit details of how those gates operate and where they're located. Yeah.
I think that's helpful. Councillor Golding, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I like this application very much. I mean, it's always difficult to do a new development within an existing urban area. There's always compromises over parking, traffic. It's never easy. So you'll never be able to satisfy everybody. But I think overall this is a very good scheme. Looks-wise, a considerable effort's been made to make the building interesting. I'm sorry to say our towns are blighted by too many boring, bland boxes. This, is far removed from that, which is really good to see. I very much support the idea of getting more people living back into our town centres again, and this adds to that because the more footfall that we get back into our town centres, the more we're going to hopefully keep our town centre shops and businesses to keep going. The railway arches, I think, again, I think that could be a really nice area. I mean, there's certainly some spaces in London where that's worked very, very well indeed. And here in Medway, has been mentioned, the viaduct in Chatham has turned out to be very good. And the way that they've put the planting and the seating outside of there has really transformed that area. So I think overall, I think it's a splendid development. I'm very tempted to rise to Councillor Maple's challenge. The next time we have an MDC application, I'll make sure there's a CGI with some rain there. So that thing is, that's, I'm afraid, Vince may cost you. Thank you much, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to, I know the Acting Vice Chair wants to speak on the application as well as then moving something. So I just want to check there's no other member before I call upon Councillor Thorne. No, okay. Just before I ask Councillor Thorne to speak, I note on page 63 there is reference to 12 objections and reference to Cuxton House flats, plural. I express some surprise at that from my knowledge of the residential details in that end of Cuxton Road, but so be it. I'm not aware of the division of Cuxton House into any significant number of flats, but the 12 objections sections appears to indicate that that is the position. But anyway, there we are. I'll come to Councillor Thorne for comment first on the application.
Thank you, Chair. Like yourself, I sort of have warmed to this application. I was very wary of it when it first started out, but looking at how it's developed and how the developers listened to our comments, I'm very, very pleased. Like all other councillors here or colleagues here, I'm concerned about the traffic flow and everything else, but the number of cars that we're talking about coming down Northcote Road and into Darnley Arch is really, I think, going to be insignificant, to be honest with you, from all the traffic that comes off London Road and the M2. It's going to be a small thing. Like Councillor Potter, I was concerned about the entrance into the flats, and the idea of having a condition put in to make a recessed entrance is much better. I welcome the fact that we have more shopping area downstairs on the ground floor. It's much welcome in the ward. We are trying within the Strood Forum, as it will be going on, to increase foot flow and everything else, and it's a great welcome to that. Likewise with the arches. In fact, Councillor Galvin stole my thunder, unfortunately, because I was going to bring up the old fire station, or as it was underneath the viaduct at Chatham, and how successful that is. So it would be wonderful to see the arches going the way they are. The other thing, like Councillor Van Dyke, I'm absolutely pleased to pieces that the Section 106 money is going to be spent within the wards. Now, whether it's the new wards or whatever is irrelevant. It's the fact that the money is going to be spent there for the people of Strood, and that means an awful lot to me. Therefore, I'm quite happy to approve this. So, it'd be a pleasure, Chairman. The motion is to approve planning application MC 213055, subject to condition A, which is Section 106 agreements, and conditions B, numbers 1 to 30 inclusive, but to add condition of recessed exit gates from Cuxton Road, and also to emphasise the parking restrictions in section 25.
You happy with that? Okay, is that seconded, please? Councillor Hackwell, thank you very much. Okay, colleagues, again, if you could clearly indicate your vote on this, please. Can I see those in favour? Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay, that again is unanimous. And if I may make a comment as acting chair tonight, that this, I think, is a good example of where developers have taken on board comments of elected members and officers and have come back with a scheme which, despite previous concerns informally made, we end up with an application that receives unanimous support of members, and that's quite something, I think, in the experience of this committee. So thanks to the applicants for their work as well, and members, that approval is confirmed. Okay, thank you very much indeed. So we will move on. As you know, we have 2 withdrawn applications. We're still showing we've withdrawn this one, I've deferred, haven't we? Yeah.
Chairman, with respect to agenda item 7, Net Text Industries, Hugh Marina, I'm requesting a deferral of that application. There are some issues regarding noise and protecting the amenities of adjacent residential properties. Not satisfactorily addressed yet, so I'm requesting a deferral, Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, that view was informally communicated to colleagues in the Labour Co-op group earlier, also by Mr. Harris, so that matter will go on to another meeting, colleagues. Okay. Brings us to item 8, which is the school in Gillingham North. We're going to hear from Councillor Cooper shortly, but of course we'll welcome the presentation from Mr. Harris. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you very much. This application relates to the the mini pitch mugger that's in this location just here, which has been approved, it's in place, and they can use it at the moment on Mondays to Fridays up till 6 o'clock at night. The proposal is to extend that use by an extra hour to 7 o'clock. So that's the area that we're talking about just in there. You can see just here there's the 2 floodlights, and again similarly it will be allowing the floodlights to be used for an extra hour as well. My officers undertook, and I think Councillor Cooper may refer to this, to have some discussions with the ward councillors, with the head teacher here, with the public health team, to discuss this extra hour, but particularly in terms of the public benefits that would come from the increased use of this, even by an extra hour, in terms of getting people out exercising, that will bring, but limiting it to just 1 extra hour in order to protect the residential amenities of those people that live adjacent to the site. So, Chairman, we're recommending approval for that 1 extra hour. As set out in the report, we need to reissue the conditions. So we've got here the plans that we're referring to, the noise management plan previously approved to make sure that continues on, and then those 2 varied conditions regarding hours and lighting, allowing that extra hour. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you, members, for allowing me to speak. I come here in very good support for this particular item because, as Mr. Harris has said, the ward councillors, we did have a meeting with Heidi Barton, and she showed us exactly what they wanted to do. We also had Scott Elliott from Public Health, and he came along and was very good about it. He wanted it to happen. I also went on another occasion just after we had that meeting to see the mini pitch in use, and the amount of young people that are using this is incredible. I know that we had a couple of objections from the local residents, but since then their fears have been somewhat allayed because the car parking area is quite large and can take quite a few vehicles. So I know that this is going to be an extremely well-used mini pitch. We, as ward councillors, have supported Burnt Oak for quite a while now, and it was very good to see this application put down for approval. So I hope that you will approve it tonight, because we really want this to happen. So, and I know the school do as well, and so do the young people. It will be well staffed. The noise will be kept to a minimum, but you know what children are like. They do like to make a noise, but the staff will be there to make sure that it's not over the top. And thank you very much if you're going to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you for that and your enthusiasm for the application. Thank you. Does any colleague need to comment? Councillor Maple.
Just very quickly, firstly, to say welcome to your first meeting, Councillor Cooper, in your 76th year now, having had your 75th birthday yesterday. Happy birthday. And secondly, I feel I should comment just to say substantive members of the committee here will know I've had a long ongoing issue with a school in my ward which has acted inappropriately when it's come to the issue of lighting, extending hours into Sundays, late into the evening. This is the responsible, respectful, community-focused way of dealing with this, seeing there's a need, working with the community, listening to those residents who perhaps have some concerns. So I pay tribute to the ward councillors, the head teacher, to officers, and I'm very, very happy to support this. And I wish other schools, when they wish to extend their hours, took this approach. It's a shame that they don't always.
Okay, thank you, colleagues, and indeed our congratulations to your 3/4 of a century yesterday. Quite remarkable. Well done. Okay, I'll come to the acting vice chair, Councillor Thorne.
Thank you again, Chair. Yes, the motion is to approve application MC 220901, subject to conditions 1 to 4 inclusive.
Is that seconded? Councillor Hackwell. Can we see clearly, please, members in support of that? Okay, thank you again, colleagues. That is another unanimous vote of support. Thank you very much, Councillor Cooper, for attending. Thank you. Okay. Colleagues, we have another withdrawn application, item number 9. Mr. Harris.
Chairman, again, just myself requesting deferral of this. With the Environmental Health Officer has raised concerns regarding the way the premises are currently operating in terms of noise disturbance, and I wish to address those concerns and work with the licensing team as well to come up with something which is acceptable. So asking for a deferral on this application, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. So it's withdrawn from the agenda tonight, but of course it is a deferral to another date. Okay, members, thank you. That brings us to agenda item 10, our final substantive application up in Chatham. Mr. Harris, thank you.
Chairman, thank you very much. This is the application site down here in Lodghill Lane. There is a permission already on this site for a 3-bedroom house. What the applicants are proposing is to increase the width of the proposal to enable the construction of a 4-bedroom house. So you can see from the aerial photograph that it's within a built-up section of properties just here. And you can see you've got that redevelopment farm complex just there. So this is the application site as it exists today. Application property, some windows on the side elevation there, but that's the application property, so they'll have to address that. On the neighbouring property, no windows within that side elevation. It's a natural infill site, so if you're looking back, that's where it will be sitting, just in there. It will come back slightly behind the rear elevation of this property. So that's the site as it exists. This is the previously approved. So you can see how the rear elevation sat further behind the rear elevation of that neighbouring property there and the existing property. But you had some big gaps to the side boundaries here. And that was for 3-bedroom. Now what's proposed is actually to make it wider, but also to slightly reduce the depth so it doesn't project too far behind the neighbouring property there at 52, and actually steps forward slightly in front of the existing property here, but provides for a step forward still behind the number 52 there. So it fits in nicely with the street scene, doesn't cause a problem in terms of any overlooking, overshadowing or anything. There are no windows affected. In terms of the street scene, you've still got 1 metre either side at least. So 1 metre this side, slightly more than 1 metre on there. So it's acceptable in terms of design terms. It's quite a mixed street scene there. This will fit in nicely within the street scene. Car parking complies with our standards and no unacceptable impact on neighbours. Recommended for approval, Chairman, subject to conditions as set out.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'm assuming this comes to committee because the parish council has objected. Is that right?
Exactly right, Chairman.
Okay. And no members indicate. I will come to the Vice Chairman. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. The motion is to approve planning application MC 220519, subject to conditions 1 to 10 inclusive.
Again, members, if you could indicate if you're in favour of that, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay, once again, 15 votes in favour. That is unanimity, so that application is approved. That concludes our business this evening. Thank you all very much. Thank you particularly to the substitutes for coming, all the officers present, and to Daniel on the tech, and to Paul for the premises. So thank you all. Enjoy the extended weekend, and we'll meet somewhere next week. Thank you very much.